Hello everybody and welcome back to Robert's Reviews. Today is Friday and this is my first new release. I plan to do 4. So we'll see how far we get. I should be able to do all 4 today. I don't have Dungeons & Dragons, although later on tonight I believe we're still starting at the same time, so about 6 o'clock. If you want to head over to the Monsters and Munchkins YouTube channel, you can go ahead and check out their one-shot campaign that they're doing. But I have a day off. So I'm watching a lot of movies. And I wrote down the 4 that I wanted to watch. I wanted to watch Nobody today, but it's only in theaters. I only have TV right now. But I was able to watch 4 of them. I've only watched 1 so far. And so today we're going to talk about Shoplifters of the World. Shoplifters of the World was released in 2021 and it was written and directed by Stephen Kijak. I believe it's pronounced Kijak. This is a non-spoiler review, so if you guys are worried about spoilers, don't worry about it. There's no spoilers here. Don't have to worry about it. Probably shouldn't play with a knife. So today we're talking about this movie, and it just came out. There's no spoilers because it literally just came out, and I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. So a brief overline of what the movie's about is essentially it's about the Smiths, which is a band from I think it's like the 80s, and they break up and it leaves all these people who love the Smiths brokenhearted. And it's also about Billy, who's about to go off to the army, and so it's their friends who are getting together at a party to send him, away with good vibes and stuff. And what happens is there's a kid who runs a record shop who basically takes a gun and goes to a radio station and puts the gun to the guy's head and is like, listen, if you don't play the Smiths for the rest of the night, I'm going to shoot you. And then there's a bunch of relationships that develop, and there's a bunch of relationships that undevelop, and it's a good idea for a story. It really is. I appreciate what this movie tried to do. I just don't think it did it very well. First thing I want to mention is there's a lot of parallels between this movie and one of my favorite movies and books of all time, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, by Stephen Chbosky. And my issue is that there's so many. Normally, it's not a huge deal. Like I understand that, that's going to happen sometimes, on occasion. But this one feels like it tried so hard to be The Perks of Being a Wallflower, for one, and for two, there's so many similarities, right? Like, there's a boy named Patrick who's straight to everyone else, but secretly he's gay. There's the Smiths, which is a huge part of Perks of Being a Wallflower. And it just feels like they're really taking a lot from it. And it did say in the movie that, they appreciate, they can take, you can borrow, but you can't steal. And this definitely felt like it borrowed a lot from The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which only helped a little bit. And it does help that the guy that's gay and straight is named Patrick, which is the same person that's in Perks of Being a Wallflower. So it feels very uncoincidental, which is sad. The story idea for this movie is really, really good. I like the idea. It's like, all right, listen, a band destroys, what happens to the rest of the world? Because if say Panic at the Disco, right? If Brendan Urie died, I'd be devastated, right? Or if Sleeping with Sirens, who's currently my favorite band, if they broke up, I'd be devastated, right? And it shows that kind of a chain reaction, except it does it really badly. All of the relationships that are formed and unformed by this movie, for one, it's nauseating to think about. There's 5 or 6 characters, and they're all working together to destroy each other almost. And it's like, can't they just have a good night? And honestly, the only thing that kept me interested in watching this movie was the radio station host, as well as the music, because the music's great. I mean, it's the Smiths. I really wanted them to play Asleep, which if they did play Asleep, it definitely would have been more connected to Perks of Being a Wallflower, but that's the only thing I know about the Smiths. I've listened to Asleep a lot. I love that song. And Shoplifters of the World Unite, which I haven't actually listened to a whole lot, but I've heard of it and I've listened to it a few times. But Asleep is definitely my favorite song by the Smiths. And we didn't get that, which is probably because I didn't want it to be too close to Perks of Being a Wallflower. But the music's pretty good. I enjoyed the music. I liked listening to it. It was like, I was sitting there and was like, wow, this story's really getting boring, but this music's pretty cool, which is a problem because that's how they're probably going to sell the movie. I don't know how much it's made so far. If you guys are interested in watching this, I rented it on Fandango now, and I got it for like $5 because I have a deal right now for the next few days that I get like 20% off or whatever. So, but it's $7 without that, so it's really not too bad. However, you'll probably be disappointed because it's not a very great movie. One aspect of the movie that I really didn't like was the acting. I didn't like almost any of the actors, which is really annoying because like normally that's like the thing that pops. Like taking into consideration the movie Cherry, which I'm going to be reading the book probably next week, and I'll upload a video about that at some point. The movie Cherry, which I reviewed I think last week, no, it must have been 2 weeks ago. Make sure you guys go check that out on my YouTube channel. Considering the movie Cherry, it's a very not good movie. I really didn't like it, but I loved watching Tom Holland in it because I think he was really good. And in this, it's almost like nothing was good. It was like the movie wasn't very good, and the acting wasn't very good. There's some acting that's pretty good in this, and the acting that's pretty good is really good in this. The writing in this movie, I don't hate. There's a lot of really great inspirational quotes and inspirational phrases and things that I think that worked pretty well for what they're probably aiming at teenagers for. But they also tried way too much, right? This movie is everything, okay? It's got everything. And I understand that they're aiming this towards teenagers, which I'm technically not a teenager anymore. Wow. I still relate to the teenagers, of course. So, like, my issue is that they were like, all right, we want to talk about suicide. We want to talk about movies. We want to talk about music. We want to talk about the gays. And we want to talk about straight relationships. We want to talk about cheating and sex. And I'm like, you're putting way too much in one movie. Like, focus on one thing. Which is one thing that I think that Perks Being Wallflower did very well, was they focused on one thing. They had other things in the background that you can kind of assume without being like in your face. Like this one, there's like, oh, there's rape, and you're like, okay, well great, now we have to deal with this. And then they don't really deal with it at all, and it's like, there's a lot of things in this movie that I just didn't really enjoy. And, like, the rape wasn't even rape, more so than it was, like, a consensual sex that she didn't like. And I'm like, well, that's just sex. And, like, then they just moved on. I'm like, we're not going to talk about what just happened. That seemed like a pretty big moment in her life. And then she went to the bathroom, and then her friend came in and was like, everything was fine. And I'm like, it was ridiculous. No spoilers, of course. I mean, you don't know who was what or whatever. But still, regardless, not very good planning. Way too oversaturated in topics and themes, and the tone of the movie was never consistent. There were times where like you wanted to feel sad, but there was happy music in the background, so you're like, it's a party, you're gonna get devastated, you shouldn't go to a party and drink all the time, which also negatively affected the acting, which I'm going to talk about now because that's pretty much all we have left to talk about is the acting. Helena Howard as Cleo. So Cleo is like the main character, and she steals a lot of tapes from the record store, who is run by a boy who likes Cleo. And the issue that I had with her acting here was that I'm assuming the director was like, hey, I want you to be plastered the whole movie. I want you to be drunk the whole time. So she had like 2 drinks and was gone. Like, every time you see her in this movie, except for like the last 5 minutes, she's just like, hey. And it's like no character development whatsoever. And it's like really boring and really dumb. And she's going to college or whatever, and she's like moving to England or whatever, and which it's no spoilers, but it's dumb. It's a dumb plot line, and it really wasn't good. Her acting really wasn't up to par. If she had even like just downplayed the drunkenness a little bit and like gave us a little bit more like insightful facial features, that would have been helpful. But every time somebody talks, she's just like she doesn't give a crap. You know, it's like, come on, like just do something. Give me what you're feeling through your face. And instead it's just like, which is really dumb. Elenacamporus as Sheila. I actually kind of liked her performance. I don't think it was the best performance in the movie, but it was pretty good. She plays somebody who dates one of the other characters who is gay. So she is in a relationship with who she thinks is a straight guy who is actually gay. And that's a really fun balance that we get from those conversations. And the looks we get from her are really insightful and really important. So I appreciate that they at least tried to do that. Whereas the rest of the other actors don't. We don't get almost anything from that. Except for one other actor that I kind of liked. And I just feel like it was really good in comparison to some of the other actors. I don't think she was fantastic. I really don't. But in comparison to most of their actors, I think she was good. James Bloor as Patrick. So he's the closet gay. And I kind of liked him, but I feel like it's more like I felt bad for him more than anything else. But they really don't develop his character as much as they should have. I felt like we were going somewhere with his character. I was like, oh, by the end of this movie, we're going to get something really cool out of this character. And then they just kind of didn't. They're like, side plot, side character. And I'm like, no, that could have been really, really interesting and really, really cool to watch. And they just kind of dumped it at the end. And I don't even think it's Bloor's fault. I liked him. I think he was a good actor in here. But I just felt like his performance was hindered by the crappy writing that they gave him. Nick Krauss as Billy. Billy's the one going to the army, and he's fine. He jerks off a lot in the movie. It's just like, okay, fine, whatever. And like there's weird sexual relationships with him that just don't make sense. They make sense and like they're predictable, but they don't talk about it in the film. And it's like, we're not going to get a part 2, so it's like we can't. There's no ending of this arc. His character arc's just like. And it's just like, we need more from that. You can't just put 5 characters and be like, all right, we know what these characters are. The audience is going to be confused the whole time. And like, that's not okay. It's not okay. And I really just didn't enjoy it, which is really unfortunate. And Joe Manganiello, I believe it's pronounced, as Full Metal Mickey. My favorite character in the movie, I think. He's the guy that runs the radio, and so he gets basically hung over by gunpoint. I forgot to mention another actor. That's my bad. I don't even know his name. So there's the guy that also comes in and holds up the guy who I forgot to write down, which is unfortunate because I did like him. He was okay, but Manganiello is hard to pronounce for one, but for two, I think he was really, really good. I really do. I think he was probably the best part of the movie. Definitely the most interesting character in the movie. He had the most to do. He had the most fun with the role. You could really tell. And I liked him a lot. And I wish we had a movie about him instead of a movie about these other teenagers that just don't really seem to have any character development at all. But yeah, that's a general gist of Shoplifters of the World, which is really unfortunate because I like the idea of the movie, and there are some aspects of the movies that are really good. I like the music. I like the idea that music can make you live. Like, it's like this, they're talking about a song that saved your life, and I'm like, Simple Plan has a song that's called "This Song Saved My Life," and it's a great song. If you have a chance, go listen to it. And I got that theme from them. I was like, okay, we're gonna get there, right? We're gonna talk about it, and then they never really did. So while I think it's a good idea for a movie, and there are some really good aspects, for the most part, it fell down and fell apart. And it was honestly just a really big mess. And so I'm going to have to give Shoplifters of the World a C+. It's not unwatchable. So if you guys want to take a look at it, it is available for video on demand to rent. I believe it might also be in theaters at this point, but I don't know for sure. So if you guys want to, go ahead and check that out. What did you guys think of Shoplifters of the World? If you guys watched it, drop it down in the comments down below, and I will take a look. I love responding to comments. It's one of my favorite things I do on this channel. I love responding and having these long conversations with community members, just like, join the community. Drop down in the comments down below, and I'll take a look at it as soon as I get the notification, alright? But that's going to do it for me for right now. I'm going to go ahead and start watching The Vault, and I will upload that review later. And as always, keep watching movies and television, stay educated, and I'll see you guys in the next video.